Do you have another job interview coming up and you're trying to decide whether you should spend more time preparing for that interview or just Netflix and chill? Well, I say, why not do both? The Avengers movie has everything you need to know in order to get ready for that interview and nail it. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Professor Kathy, and I help students get better grades in less time, and I teach using a Netflix style of learning. This week I'm watching The Avengers. I've put together 13 tips that will help you ace that job interview just by watching a movie. What could be better than that? So make sure you stick to the end. The last tip's probably going to get me into trouble, but haters are going to hate. I'm doing it anyways. Here we go. Now, in this scene, Nick Fury swoops down. He says, "How bad is it?" And Agent Coulson said, "That's the problem, sir. We don't know." So interview tip number 1, you don't know what you don't know. You're probably interviewing with someone that you've never met before, probably. And they're going to be asking questions that you just don't know the answer to. So instead of making up something on the fly, just say, "I'm not sure. Can you give me some more information? Let me get back to you on that." The person who is interviewing you wants to trust you. So they want to trust that what you say is the truth. And if you just make stuff up on the spot, that shows that, hey, you might do that on the job and that's not someone you can rely on. Now, in this scene, Captain America is working out his frustrations on the punching bag in the gym. He hits it so hard that it goes flying across the room, but no problem. He turns around and he has several other punching bags on the ground. So obviously he knew that this was going to happen. He had some backup punching bags. So tip number 2, when you're preparing for a job interview, always have a backup. Bring extra copies of your resume. Bring your references, even though they may not ask you for references during that particular job interview. Bring your questions. So make it look like you've prepared for this job interview, which you have, and always have extra resumes on hand. Now, in this scene, Iron Man, Tony Stark, flies back to Stark Industries Tower, and as he lands, these robots or machines take off his Iron Man suit for him as he's walking, so it doesn't take him any extra time to get his stuff all put away so he can get on with his day. Now, tip number 3 in a job interview prep, make sure you are organized. That means finding out where the interview will take place. Actually go to the location. If you're driving a car, where will you find parking? Does the parking only allow you to pay in cash or debit card or credit card? Are you taking the bus? How nasty is that bus going to be? Is it not air conditioned? Are you better off spending money on an Uber? So make sure when you're preparing for the job interview that you arrive fresh, and that involves being, tip number 3, organized. In this scene, Iron Man, Tony Stark, is talking to the whole Avengers team, and he's asking questions. Hey, don't you know this? Am I the only one who did the readings? Which feels a lot like school. So tip number 4 during your interview prep, do your research. And I mean really do your research. There are certain things that really turn off an interviewer. One of them is, do you know how to pronounce the name of the company? If you don't know, go on YouTube. They probably have a channel where someone at the company is pronouncing the name of the company. You should know what their primary business is. You should reread the job posting right before the job interview so you remember what this job is about, especially when you're applying for multiple jobs and they're all starting to look the same after a while. So a little bit of research goes a long way. In this scene, the Avengers are under attack. A fighter pilot flies up to their ship. The fighter pilot says, "Target engage," and starts shooting through the windows and hits the Hulk. And then the Hulk is very angry, jumps out, and starts attacking the fighter jet's plane. And the fighter pilot says, "Target angry, target angry." By shooting at the Hulk, it actually made things worse because apparently this guy didn't know that the Hulk feeds on anger. So tip number 5 when preparing for a job interview, put yourself in the shoes of the interviewer. What is it like on that side of the table? It's possible that the interviewer has 8 different interviews today, and so you're going to need to put yourself in their shoes. You need to stand out from all those people. The interviewer may have already made up their mind who they want to hire, and you need to convince them that you are the right person. The interviewer is going to see many people who are nervous and sweating and saying, so you need to smile and look confident, and you're happy to be there, and you'd love the opportunity to work with them. That interviewer is going to have some people that just shake their hand at the end of the interview and walk out. Be different, stand out, because the interviewer has many people to keep track of. Stand out in that interview and say, what are the next steps? I'd love to take a tour of the facilities. What are the next steps in the interview process? So tip number 5, put yourself in the shoes of the interviewer. In this scene, Thor thinks that his brother Loki is escaping from his prison cell. Thor dives to try to catch Loki. Loki, it's just a hologram. He disappears. Thor falls down inside of the cell. The doors are closed and Thor is now trapped. And Loki says, are you ever not going to fall for that? I mean, for heaven's sakes, they're brothers. They've probably been playing this joke on each other for centuries. So tip number 6, when you're preparing for a job interview, think of the typical questions, the typical tricks that are usually come up in a job interview. And it's going to be things like, why are you interested in this position? Why are you interested in this company? What made you want to study this accounting or engineering or whatever it is that you want to do? So you should at least know what the common questions are and be prepared with those answers so that it looks like you know what you're doing. In this scene, Agent Coulson is badly injured. Loki walks away, turns his back to him. Oh, he's got him beat. And Agent Coulson says, you know what, we are going to win. And Loki's confused. Why is that? And Agent Coulson says, because you lack conviction. So interview tip number 7, you need to put your heart into it. You need to act like you want it, like you really want it, because you are competing against other people who are trying for the very same job. And if you don't look like you're into it, then why should they pick you? You need to have conviction. Good news, we're more than halfway there. The 13 tips to nail that next job interview. And see, isn't this more fun to just Netflix and chill, or Disney Plus and chill? Not that I'm bitter. Anyways, moving on. In this scene, Captain America is checking in with Natasha to make sure that Hawkeye is ready to go. And Captain America says, do you have a suit? And Hawkeye says, yes, I do. And Natasha nods, yep, he's ready. So Captain America says, okay, let's suit up. So tip number 8, preparing for a job interview, you need to dress for success. You need to look the part. Now, you don't have to be rich to look put together. Something as simple as making sure your hair is combed, you've had a shower. You'd be surprised how many people show up to a job interview and their shirt is not tucked in. But when you arrive at the interview, check yourself in a mirror in the washroom just to make sure you haven't got something stuck in your teeth. Little things like this means that you care about the job interview and that you're taking this seriously. In this scene, Tony Stark jumps out of a building, and before he does, he puts on special bracelets so that as he's falling through the air, his Iron Man suit chases after him and then attaches to these bracelets so that he is wearing the Iron Man suit before he splats on the ground. So tip number 9 when preparing for a job interview is to have a plan. Now this is different from tip number 2. Tip number 2, we're going to have a backup plan. We're going to have many copies of our resume. We're going to have copies of our job references. Tip number 9 is to have a plan. Understand what's going to happen in a job interview. When you get to the job interview, if it's cold outside, you may be wearing a coat. And when you meet your interviewer, you're shuffling with taking your coat off and trying to shake their hand. When you arrive, before you go see the receptionist, take your coat off and drape it over your arm so that you don't have that awkward moment. Other things like, you're going to, during the job interview, have a discussion. So make sure you bring some paper and a pen. How about 2? Or better yet, a pencil so you don't get ink all over your hands to make notes. Bring your questions in writing because you're going to be nervous and you're going to forget your questions. And the interviewer will see that you have written out question that leave a blank space where you're going to write the answer to that question. And the interviewer will see that you have put a lot of work into preparing for that interview, meaning that you are serious. In this scene, New York is under attack. The bad guys are flying in and shooting everywhere, including civilians, and the New York Police Department is trying to defend the city. And Captain America swoops down and tells the police officers, you should do this and this. We need a perimeter from this area to this area. And the one New York police officer says, well, why should I take orders from you? And at that very moment, when the bad guys attacks, Captain America protects everyone, fights them off, and turns around, and the officer says, yep, I'm going to do what you say, and followed his instructions to the T. So interview tip number 10. When you're preparing for a job interview, no matter what the interviewer looks like or sounds like, assume that they are the authority. even if they are disorganized, maybe they're having a bad day, do not take them lightly. Assume that they are the decision maker. They probably are. They know the company. They work there. They know the job and what they're looking for in a candidate. So even if they look too relaxed, just keep on your toes and remember they are the authority. In this scene, many members of the Avengers team are gathered together on the ground there in New York, trying to come up with a way that they can work together to try to defeat the bad guys. So tip number 11, when preparing for a job interview, ask for help. Lean on your friends or your neighbor or your cat, whatever. Ask for a friend to read your resume. Make sure there's no typos or that it doesn't come across as funny. Even better, if it's a really good friend, like someone who will help you move, ask that person to role play with you. And I know it feels gross. I know it feels yucky. Nobody wants to role play, but it's better to make the mistakes with a friend or your cat than it is to fall over your words during the interview. Now, in this scene, the Avengers are all gathered in New York City. They're under attack. Bruce Banner shows up in his motorcycle, and Captain America says to Bruce Banner, "Dr. Banner, now might be a time for you to get angry." And Dr. Banner turns around and says, "Captain, that's my secret. I'm always angry." So tip number 12, when preparing for a job interview, just be yourself. You are who you are. Just go with your strengths. You're not going to change your personality during a job interview, and it's exhausting. So be yourself. You will appear more confident if you just act natural. If you sound scripted, it'll look like you are putting on a show and this is not the real you, and the interviewer wants to see the real you. So be yourself. Now in this scene, the Avengers are under attack and Captain America uses his army tactical expertise to lead the team. And so he gives instructions to every team member what they should do. And when he turns to the Hulk, his instructions to the Hulk are, Hulk, smash. It's perfect. I love that scene. Tip number 13, when preparing for a job interview, you need to be clear and direct. Do not try to use flowery sentences. You're not impressing anyone. Keep in mind that the person who is interviewing you knows more than you. So do not try to outsmart them. They are smarter than you. When it comes to that company, when it comes to the job description, and what you don't know, the interview knows what key qualities they are looking for and are the deciding factor when deciding who they're going to choose. So don't try to outsmart the interviewer. Just be clear and direct, because strong communication skills are more important than anything on your resume. Now that last tip may get me into trouble in the comment section. Haters are going to hate. So please understand, I'm not promoting violence. Do not smash the interviewer. Avengers is just a movie. It's nonfiction. I'm just trying to have some fun with something as serious as preparing for a job interview. Now I gave you 13 tips based on the Avengers movie. Did I miss anything? Is there any other clip from the movie that could have demonstrated a different tip? Or is there another interview tip that has saved you and helped you get the job? If so, drop it in the comments below. Now, while you're all comfy on the couch watching the Avengers, let's take a look at the second movie in the Avengers series, The Age of Ultron. That movie has all you need to know to survive a group project. We'll see you next time.